Welcome to Calling All Brides podcast. I'm your host, Joe Cirillo, with over 20 years experience in the wedding industry, from an owner of a wedding event rental company to a DJ and to a wedding videographer.
And I'm your host, DJ Michael Joye. I have, check this out, 30 years of being a DJ. Trust me, there's nothing I haven't seen or heard at a wedding.
All right, well, welcome to the Calling All Brides podcast. I'm your host, Joe Cirillo, and our other host, DJ Michael, will be back with us next time. Well, planning a wedding can be stressful, no doubt. You know, from picking out a wedding dress, to researching vendors, to paying for your wedding, to managing everyone's opinion of how your wedding should be, it just keeps going and going and going. You know, in fact, 96% of brides reported having wedding planning stress in a recent survey. So having your stress level in overdrive is completely understandable. You know, you still have a job, you've got your family, you've got bills, you know, you got a life, right? Plus, you know, you're spending a lot of money on your wedding. You know, in fact, in 2023, the average wedding cost is right around $30,000, but it's expensive, right? And with inflation, everything going on, you know, it is just so much stress planning a wedding. So in this podcast episode today, we're going to talk about the 5 ways you can reduce wedding planning stress. So number 1 is going to be prioritize. So decide right now, you know, that you're not going to nitpick every single detail, because if you do that, you're not going to be happy. You know, if you are, you know, trying to find everything to be 100% for your dream wedding, and then something goes wrong, you know, it's going to make you unhappy. So to keep things in perspective, you want to prioritize the essentials. You know, those things that are super important to making your dream wedding come true. So, you know, pull out a pen and paper if you're old school, or if you got your phone, pull that out, get your notes going, and let's make a list of the most essential pieces to your wedding. And what I'm talking about here is I'm talking about, you know, thinking about your dress, food and drink, your venue, music, atmosphere. You know, what do you want your wedding to, you know, to be like? Don't get caught up in the small details that no one's going to remember. You know, I've been part of thousands of weddings over the years, and you know what I remember is it's the venue. It's the food, it's the music, it's the decor, the wedding dress. Those are the things that come top of mind when I'm thinking about all the thousands of weddings that I've been to through the years. You know, it's not the small things, it's the big things. You know, I remember, you know, oh man, that food was really good, or no, that food wasn't good, or man, the DJ was awesome and I had a great time dancing. The mood was awesome. Or, you know, no, the mood wasn't good. Or, you know, the decor was really cool. You know, it was different. Or I could tell it matched, you know, personality, or it had some special meaning. You know, the wedding dress, like, wow, that wedding dress was just fantastic. You know, it really fit the bride well. And, you know, maybe the bride had a couple different dresses that she changed into, you know, throughout the evening. Those are the things that I remember, you know, so I don't get caught up in the small things, and your guests don't get caught up in the small things. You know, in fact, looking at some recent surveys, 62% of wedding guests said that food is the number one important thing that they pay attention to at weddings. I mean, we all love food. Let's face it, guys. You know, but it's important to your guests. You know, it should be important to you as well. According to Wedding Wire, a recent study, 47% of guests said the venue was one of the biggest things that they noticed when they're attending a wedding. You know, it's going to be very, you know, apparent. You know, I mean, somebody has a backyard wedding, which is perfectly fine, you know, if you do that because of budget. But if you're at, you know, this brand new venue or something like that, you know, people are going to remember that too. So, you know, just keep in mind, you know, that's pretty popular among guests. Your guests want to celebrate with you and your new spouse, you know, so good music is essential, you know, for the party atmosphere. 46% of wedding guests said they care about having, you know, a good music, a good time at a wedding. So that's definitely important, you know, whether it's a DJ, whether it's a band, you know, keeping that atmosphere, that party going, you know, making sure that, you know, it's going to be fun for everyone of all ages, right? So, you know, both during the ceremony and reception, guests are indeed checking out your decor. You know, according to a recent study, a third of guests said they pay attention to the wedding decor. So it doesn't mean that you need to go, you know, Pinterest crazy on everything that you're doing. But, you know, working with your vendors to come up with a cohesive, you know, color scheme and a wedding style that will ensure that your decor, you know, is on point. For some guests, they highlight of the wedding is going to be the free booze that you have. A recent study said 40% of guests said they care about the bar. Well, let's face it. I mean, people do like to drink alcohol. Not every wedding has alcohol, and it's okay if you don't have alcohol at your wedding. But, a good chunk of people there do enjoy that. So, alcohol can be expensive. So don't feel like you've got to offer, top shelf selections. Know your guest. You can have, instead you can limit your bar to wine and beer, a signature cocktail. Things like that can help you save money while still providing ample drinks to your guests. Now, let me tell you some things that your guests don't care about, and that's kind of the structure of your ceremony. Added readings, things like that. That's going to be meaningful to you and your partner, but it's not going to be really meaningful to your guests, right? Aside from your vows, your guests probably aren't really, hanging on to every single word that's being said during the ceremony. You and your loved ones may spend, hours or more, agonizing over reception toast and, who gives them, that kind of thing. Again, recent surveys said that, only 22% of guests cared about a wedding toast. So, not that big of a deal. Another one that guests don't pay attention to is bouquet and garter. A recent study said 10% of guests pay attention to the bouquet and garter toss. And as we see at weddings, nowadays, bouquet and garter toss are getting, they're just not in style as much as they used to be. Definitely not the garter toss. Bouquet toss, maybe 50% of the time. But garter toss is really, not that big anymore and left out of the majority of weddings that we attend and that we're part of. So, in the end, I'd say don't sweat the small stuff. Focus on the bigger picture, things that are going to matter to you and to your guests, and don't get hung up on all the small things. All right, moving into point number 2, and that is communication is key. Everybody wants to have a say or opinion in your wedding. I'm sure you're feeling that right now if you're going through the wedding planning stress, from family to friends to coworkers, your significant other, wedding party, all those folks that are involved, they're, part of your wedding. They all have an opinion of how they feel your wedding should be. And they're going to tell you that, and that can get very difficult to try to manage. But, just got to keep things in perspective. 53% of couples in a recent survey said their parents are the biggest stress-causing culprit, while 33% said it's their in-laws. So if mom and dad are contributing to your wedding budget, they've bought themselves a say in the planning. So you need to sit down with them, from the very start and talk about their vision for the big day. What's the budget? What's important to them that they want to make sure, they're going to have their friends there. They may have some things that are important to them because their friends are going to be there. Unfortunately, we live in a world where sometimes we want to impress people. So we may have people that family members or friends or whatever want to impress, and that's going to get, put into the wedding as well. So just keep that in mind. But, the biggest thing here is going to be finding ways to compromise so everybody's happy. You're the wedding couple, you need to be happy, but if you got somebody else that's paying for the budget, you got to keep them happy too. So there's a lot of compromise that has to happen. Getting your families on the same page right from the get-go is going to be the best way to avoid butting heads and when you're in the thick of planning. So just keep that in mind. It's going to kind of that give and take kind of mentality is really going to help you out and keep you less stressed. All right, let's talk about tip number 3 to help you with your wedding planning stress, and that is to have a plan B. Everyone wants their wedding day to go off without an issue. But remember, there are going to be things that happen that are out of your control. Namely, the number one thing that's going to happen that is out of your control is going to be weather. Being prepared for any worst case scenarios will help you roll with the punches. And when something goes wrong, you'll be able to deal with it a whole lot better. Just keep that in mind. Talk to your venue, talk to your photographer, talk to your DJ, talk to your officiant. All the wedding vendors that are involved, of your big day, talk to them ahead of time in case the weather becomes an issue. So that way you're all on the same page. You've got a plan B. If you've got to move your ceremony from outside to inside, what's that going to look like? Is there going to have to be, time to flip the ceremony, into the cocktail hour, into the reception. Those are all things that if you talk about that now, way in advance of your wedding day, you're not going to be stressed out on your wedding day, because if it does rain, you already know what the plan's going to be when you have plan B in effect. So just embrace the craziness if it happens. Rain can make for some awesome photos with your photographer. I can tell you that, we've got a local photographer here. Every time it's rain that I've been a part of a wedding with this photographer, she has a clear umbrella, she has extra lights, and can just really make those pictures look awesome with rain. So, just go with the flow. It's also good luck on your wedding day if it rains, right? So just remember, at the end of the day, love is the reason for your wedding. So no matter what happens, just try to keep that in perspective. Plan ahead, do it well in advance, so that way if something like rain, weather, hurricane, here we're in the South here. Some months of the year we have to worry about hurricanes. So, again, planning for that, planning for a snowstorm if you're up north, just plan early so that way if it does happen, you'll have a plan B and you won't be stressed and the day will go off perfectly just like you envisioned it to be. All right, let's talk about tip number 4, and that's going to be self-care. A recent survey said 86% of couples said pre-planning stress caused them to experience physical symptoms like headaches, changes in appetites, even hair loss. So it's going to be really important for you to maintain your sanity by setting hard stops for wedding planning activities and sticking to them. Sometimes it can be really hard. We set, a plan, and it can be hard to stick with those plans, but it's going to be really important for your stress level and to manage your stress level. So for example, if you allocate 2 hours in the evening 3 nights a week for wedding planning related tasks, the other 2-3 nights of the week, then do something you enjoy. Go out on a date night, go out to dinner, go for a walk, do all those kind of couple things to help you stay physically in good health and mentally in good health. Take a walk, exercise, get a massage. But you got to take care of yourself first, or you're not going to have a clear head to think about all this wedding planning that you've got to do. All right, we have come to our last tip, and that is tip number 5, and that is wedding planning resources. These are going to be key to help you with reducing stress. I'm talking about wedding planning books. There are so many wedding planning books, and I will actually put them in the description for you, so that way you can check these out. But wedding planning books will have pre-made timelines. They'll have checklists for you. They'll have day of kind of tips, all kinds of things that will help you. So there are tons of them out there. I can make some recommendations for you. So check them out. They will definitely help with your wedding planning stress. All right, next thing I'm going to mention as a resource is hiring a wedding planner or hiring a wedding coordinator. And yes, I realize it does cost money, to hire a wedding planner or a coordinator, but that's going to be money well spent. They're going to help you with your vision. They have the experience of planning tons and tons of weddings, so they can, they know what vendors to reach out to for your budget. They know what vendors to reach out to that fit your vision, all those kind of things. They are, well versed in that, and they're going to help you reduce your wedding planning stress. So if you can afford it, at least look into it. Check out the going rates for a wedding planner, wedding coordinator, and see if it's something you can fit in your budget. And if it is something you fit in your budget, I can tell you just from personal experience of being at thousands of weddings and being a vendor at thousands of weddings that, I see what the wedding planner and the wedding coordinator do behind the scenes, and they take away so much stress that you wouldn't even know about that occurs. I can tell you personally, kind of a funny story here. I'm a wedding videographer, and there have been times where something crazy happens. I actually at a wedding about a month ago, I was filming it was at a beautiful lake here in the Columbia, South Carolina area. It's called Lake Murray. And we were on some rocks right next to the lake and filming the wedding rings. And for whatever reason, one of the wedding bands fell between the rocks and was just like, I couldn't find it. So reached out to the wedding planner and her team that were on site. We are like moving giant, like almost boulder style rocks. Finally, one of the wedding planner teammates found the sparkling band there. We were able to retrieve it, and needless to say, we're not going to be putting rings on rocks anymore near a lake. But anyways, crazy things happened. The bride and groom had no idea this happened. Still to this day have no idea it happened. And, again, this was stress that it could have caused the bride and groom if they knew about it. But the wedding planning team and the vendors were able to resolve it, take care of it, and, keep that stress away from bride and groom. So there's so many things that happen, and that was just an example. But, I mean, I'm talking about things from wedding cakes, disasters, all kinds of things happen on a wedding day that the wedding planners and coordinators do to, behind the scenes and take care of things so that way it keeps you stress-free. So definitely worthwhile if you can afford one. All right, and our last tip on wedding planning resources to help you with your stress is just overall the internet. There's so many, if you're looking for tips and advice, you've got our podcast that we put out each Tuesday to help you. But, there are other podcasts as well. You've got YouTube to reach out to, there's all kinds of videos out there, tips, tricks, all those kind of things. There's social media groups, on Facebook, that have, just kind of band together all these brides, all these couples, just talking about wedding planning and, asking for advice and help. So there are so many resources out there now, way more than what there used to be. So taking advantage of those. It will definitely be helpful and help you on your wedding day. So I hope that these 5 tips have helped you with your wedding planning stress. Again, guys, at the end of the day, everything's going to be okay no matter what happens. You're going to have a beautiful wedding, and just remember, have fun. You're there with your loved ones. You're there with your fiance, who's now going to be your husband or wife, and you're going to be there with family and friends. Just enjoy that. Enjoy the moment, and everything will be okay. All right, guys. Well, I hope you enjoyed this episode. Please make sure you are continuing to tune in to the Calling All Brides podcast. You can check us on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts, on iHeart. You can go to our website, callingallbridespodcast.com. You can check out our YouTube channel, Calling All Brides Podcast. So many ways for you to connect with us. If you do get a chance, I do ask you on the podcast apps, if you will give us a rating and review, that will really help us. It will get our podcast out to other brides and grooms out there who are looking for help. So please give us a rating and review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, whichever platform you're listening to. And if you have any questions, we would be glad to do an episode about your wedding questions. So feel free to reach out to us at any of those, our social media platform accounts, as well as you can email us at callingallbridespodcast@gmail.com. Well, till the next episode, we hope you have a great and fabulous day, and we will talk to you soon. Take care. Great episodes coming up, and we've got a whole lot more, so make sure you stay tuned to the Calling All Brides podcast.